So, spoilers. Turns out The Room got made into a movie at the end. And Lisa's mom definitely has breast cancer. I'm still processing The Disaster Artist. I just got back home from watching The Disaster Artist. And I left the movie with a mixture of tears from laughing and genuinely investing in Tommy Wiseau as a character. Yeah, this is up on my 10. I love this movie. Again, like I mentioned for my Guilty Pleasure Treasure for The Room a couple of days ago, I feel that if you aren't already kind of in tune with the oddity that is The Room and the oddity that is Tommy Wiseau, if you're not at least aware of what's so memeable and what is so just fascinating about this particular little caveat of pop culture when it comes to this movie and this creator, you might not get why this movie is getting so well received by a lot of folks. It is very much, I've heard a lot of comparisons to Ed Wood. It is very much along those lines wherein I feel the viewing experience is enriched a little bit more by allowing yourself a little bit of context before you go into the movie. If you go into this movie just kind of like being like, okay, James Franco's doing this biopic about this weird filmmaker guy, sure. You won't really get all the little idiosyncrasies that lead up into The Room, or you won't really get all the little Easter eggs or the little like winks and nods they're doing without bashing you over the head with them throughout the film. There's a lot of stuff in this that I was just relishing as a fan of The Room, that I really just had a huge grin on my face throughout all of this. But it's not just a funny movie, it is very much a pretty well done drama at times. This is the most I've liked both of the Franco brothers. I like James Franco just fine and stuff. I really do enjoy the stuff he puts out there. And Dave Franco, I've started to warm to quite a bit. I didn't really care for him much when he was on Scrubs, but in the past couple of years with a lot of movies, like he's really kind of worked his way into my good graces with his career. These two in these particular roles really elevated the material. I feel anyone else trying to do this movie would have taken it to some unnecessarily dark territory where it didn't need to go, or they would have just straight up had a complete farce with it. And this is neither farce nor compelling drama 100% either way. It is a nice mixture of both, which I feel is one of the big strengths of the appeal of Wiseau. So yeah, this chronicles, I'm guessing a lot of the events that Greg Sestero ended up writing down or recording for the book, The Disaster Artist. I didn't read the book, so I'm not sure how accurate it plays into his account of things, but I'm guessing fairly accurate since that was the primary source. Yeah, even Tommy Wiseau, like, I guess in interviews is saying like, okay, 40% of that book is true. So, but I mean, if only 40% of that book is authentic, I mean, Franco and company really make you believe that the other 60% actually happened. Like I said, James Franco, I really like him in this role. It's really transformative almost. I completely forgot that it was James Franco while watching him up there, because his mannerisms, his inflections, his posture, everything he does, like, yeah, it screams Johnny from The Room. I mean, Johnny from The Room is Tommy Wiseau. I mean, the two aren't really that far apart. I guess the one difference is that Tommy Wiseau isn't acting when he's not Johnny. This performance did something I was not really concerned about, but I was interested to see, which is how do you humanize someone who has spent his career in the public eye, as he has for the past 10 or so years, as being this enigmatic eccentric? And how do you make that relatable? How do you keep him from not being just an egotistical asshole through and through? because it does go into that territory when he's filming The Room, when he's, getting jealous that Greg is kind of outpacing him with regards to success in his career, with regards to acting, with regards to more possibilities opening up for him, with regards to the fact that Greg starts a relationship with a girl played by Alison Brie, and Tommy's jealous that Greg has found a social circle kind of outside of him. So how do you make that relatable and still get across just how weird this guy is? And James Franco does a really solid job with his portrayal of Tommy. He has everything down pat. Like, he's goofy and kooky and weird and just this big, dumb kid. There are points in this film where you genuinely kind of feel something coming across. You sympathize at points with this guy. When he gets rejected by Judd Apatow at a restaurant, at a fancy restaurant, he's like trying to show off his acting talent to Judd Apatow, who's playing like this producer in Hollywood in the late 90s. And Apatow basically says something to the effect of, like, it's never going to happen for you. You've seen it in the trailers, I'm sure. In a million years, it's never going to happen. He's like, but after that? He's like, even after that. And it's funny, but it's also kind of heartbreaking. And then after that, you cut to Wiseau just walking down the street, like gaunt, disheveled, really just had his teeth kicked in metaphorically. And when Greg and him are up on the roof of their apartment just talking, he has like a breakdown a little bit. Like, he has a couple of little breakdowns at point. One where he gets the inspiration to kind of do their own movie, and towards the end, during the premiere of The Room, it's these quieter, softer moments, and Franco is pulling some drama out of what he's saying about how he feels so rejected by everyone. Everyone's telling him he's just this loser, that he's more suited to be a movie villain than a movie hero and everything like that. And he looks weird and acts weird, and you can see that it does get to him at times. And he has a bit of tearfulness at these certain points, and you do genuinely feel bad for him in those moments. But then he'll turn it around when his enabler Greg, who Dave Franco as Greg is a very likable guy, but he's too nice. And that might be the actual Greg Sestero's personality, perhaps. Perhaps he's kind of a pleaser in that regard. But throughout this whole movie, I'm kind of like, well, Greg's a pretty stand-up guy, but there's still a point where I tell Tommy, dude, fuck off with this. Throughout all of this, like, he is kind of helping Tommy to spur on this dream. They have this pact that they're going to make it big and that this is their vision together. And during the rough and tumble parts of shooting The Room, he's kind of the only one who's in Tommy's corner at times, and even he doesn't like being there. Like, you definitely feel a lot of sympathy for Greg, because he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He wants to, progress his career, but every time anything has to come back to Tommy, he ends up biting the bullet, or taking the bullet, as it were, for Tommy. And you're kind of like, oh, Greg, man, I get it. You want to be a nice guy to your buddy, but there's points where you got to say, dude, whatever. That was just me coming out in that movie. But he does a good job of kind of enabling the ego that Tommy was known to have on the set of The Room. A lot of the blow-ups on the set are pretty well done. There are points where James Franco goes at it with Seth Rogen as Sandy, the script supervisor. He goes at it with Paul Schreer, who I believe is the director of photography. It's all the stuff, even if you didn't read the book, that you might have heard rumor of in, midnight screenings or the festivals that they take The Room to, or just in, like, the lore surrounding this movie. Like, the scene of where they're first shooting a love scene between Johnny and Lisa, and everyone's like, dude, no one wants to see you naked, but he vehemently pushes for that, saying, like, she's not beautiful, she's not sexy enough, makeup, and is like almost slut-shaming Ari Gaynor, the actress playing Lisa. There's a point where Paul Schrader just throws down his shit. He's just like, dude, you insult this girl one more time, I will fucking kick your ass. And like, they get into almost fisticuffs on set and everything like that. And like, when it gets real like that, you're like, oh, damn, this movie's... There's that darkness a little bit. The little bit of that darkness. The film ends with recreations of scenes from The Room, but that is icing compared to actually seeing how they set up some of these shots, how they set up some of these scenes, the rationale that goes into some of these scenes. The first scene they shoot is with Chris R., played by Zac Efron in this movie, and Denny, who's played by Josh Hutcherson from Hunger Games. And it is hysterical because you see Zac Efron off camera, like he's just getting pumped up, he's getting into the role and stuff, and he's just walking around the set like punching things and going, motherfucker, pulling out his gun and twisting it sideways like that. Like that's him preparing to be Chris R. And you see Tommy and Denny and Greg off to the side being like, oh God, he might murder Denny in this take. Like, they're just wide-eyed with horror as Zac Efron is, like, just pumping himself up and turning himself into this on-screen monster. And so, when they do the, where's my fucking money, Denny? Where's my fucking money? And he, like, grabs him, throws him to the ground. And Tommy and Greg run in. He's like, okay, cut. You all right, little boy actor? Like, it's so batshit to actually see that reenacted after you've heard so much about just how crazy production on this movie was. You can tell they're having a blast, but they're, investing in the reality of this situation. Like, Seth Rogen is very reserved and, I want to say, really holstered with regards to his emoting in this movie, but that is why it is so funny to see him literally and, again, metaphorically just roll his eyes at everything Tommy does and how it is so wrong, but he is just as much an enabler as Greg. He just goes with it because he doesn't give a shit because the checks are clearing somehow, and everyone is perplexed as to how this guy has so much money to finance all of this. But it is really kind of fun to see Seth Rogen just play really laid back, or play really kind of the straight man to all these antics. Like in the sex scene where he's like, is he having sex with her belly button? He knows where her vagina is, right? And just to hear him try to rationalize or try to justify to himself why all this crazy stuff is happening on set. It is really well done. Of course, one of the most effective scenes I feel is the actual premiere, when you see the audience start to look a little bit at the screen and be like, huh? What is this? And then they start to slowly turn that confusion into joy. To see a lot of people's reactions expressed on screen, for some reason just did it for me. Because you see the reenactment, you see the opening to the movie, and you've got Denny, Johnny, and Lisa, like, pillow fighting on the bed, which is just an absurd scene already. But then to actually see, like, the audience be like, what is this? to see Paul Scheer and Seth Rogen look at each other like, what the fuck is this? To see Ari Gaynor as I can't remember her last name, but Juliet, the actress who plays Lisa, just kind of be like, whenever there's a love scene on, it cuts to her face like this in the audience, and she's just like, it's still going. And you just find yourself laughing along with the audience at the absurdity of it. But then the movie takes a hard right and hits you with a dose of brutal reality, and it cuts to Franco as Tommy. You cuts to his face, and he has tears in his eyes. Like, he is devastated that people are mocking, or that people are laughing at him. It made me feel bad. I literally went, oh, in the theater, because I was laughing along too. Like, because I know the rhythm of the original movie, I know a lot of those scenes almost line for line. I can predict where it's going to go, and I can predict exactly what the audience reaction is going to be, and the audience reaction doesn't disappoint. But then it does that hard cut to a close-up of Tommy's, like, tear-stained face, and I immediately just remember, like, oh, God, this was someone's passion project, and I'm laughing at it, and the audience is laughing at it. And I feel for a millisecond really bad about it, because that's the thing, you never, unless you went to one of those midnight screenings and Tommy Wiseau for some reason or another didn't embrace the memeability of The Room and actually had a mental breakdown in front of you, unless that happened to you, you've never really had that context before. You've never actually seen how people perceive that movie from his perspective. And it is really well done. It's really well balanced. And it goes by really fast. It's an hour and 40-some minutes, I want to say. I was surprised it was over when it was. I guess this is probably where the book ends too, perhaps. Like I said, I didn't read the book, so I'm not entirely sure. But I was kind of curious to see like how they would have handled post-Room release fame and notoriety, to see maybe a year or so down the road where the midnight screenings are still going, and is Tommy still with this gag that he wasn't really thinking was a gag, he was taking this seriously? Is he still embracing the public persona that everyone just assumes he has or whatever? But I understand why they didn't do that. If that's where the book kind of ends, and honestly, you don't want to drag out that experience too much, I'd say that, ending the movie on the premiere is a pretty good kind of peak you can reach. But there's part of me that was genuinely curious, like, to see where does he go from here. And definitely, I can't believe I'm saying this for a non-Marvel comic book superhero whatever movie. There's a post-credit scene. Stick around for it. You'll have fun with it. Hell yeah, do I recommend The Disaster Artist. I had a blast watching this movie. It was everything people have been telling me it was. It was everything that I had hoped it would be. Yeah, it's on my best of. Not quite the top. It's working its way into maybe the number 4 spot for me right now. I recommend seeing it, but like I said before, it might help to just have a little bit of context for those of you who are kind of novices to Wiseau, to have a little bit of an idea of what you're getting into, because to just a generic viewer who's just going in this because, oh, James Franco's in it and Seth Rogen's in it, a bunch of people I like are in it, the character of Tommy might be a little confusing to any of you who aren't in on the joke already. So for anything, just see a couple of highlights from The Room to kind of understand what they're trying to do, and then you won't be disappointed because you'll see these shots lined up with their reenactments. And for the most part, they're pretty dead on. Really had a good time with it. Catch you next time.